Good day to the citizens of this world and the collective. Anonymous TV presents Anonymous Veterans Day. In 1917, Americans sent young men to shores of Europe into the trenches. World War I ended 98 years ago on November 11th, on what was originally called Armistice Day. Victorious, Yanks were coming home after securing Europe in a war erroneously dubbed the War to End All Wars. If only humanity were so lucky. This Veterans Day take time to honor individuals who have served in our armed forces. Americans of every generation have answered the call, fighting in wars and conflicts across the globe. As the world's superpower, the United States has routinely entered foreign wars, though the American people have at times wanted to disengage from these entanglements. Generally after conflict, war-weary Americans focus inward on building families, concentrating on economic stability. Perhaps the most infamous pro-isolationist gathering took place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the afternoon of December 7, 1941. Senator Gerald Nye, RND, spoke to the nearly 2,500 in attendance. The senator contended that President Roosevelt was a warmonger, that he and the military-industrial complex were intent on dragging us into World War II. Roosevelt was a big government liberal, not a warmonger. As Senator Nye spoke to the near-capacity crowd, bombs were falling at Pearl Harbor. America had been attacked and its citizens would react accordingly. The crowd quickly dispersed. The America First movement would be marginalized for the duration. The United States galvanized against a common enemy. America had the industrial capability and the manpower to save the world from tyranny. When the United States went to work and turned Detroit, Michigan from automobile to wartime production, we eventually outpaced and crushed our enemies on the battlefield and in production of war material. From personnel to aircraft to ships patrolling the seas, ammunition to advance the cause of freedom and food and fuel to advance the armies, the United States was a proven leader. We won that war on all fronts, including here at home. At the beginning of the Second World War, the United States lagged behind. Why did we start the war with the 17th largest army? Possibly due to the lack of political will to react to the events of the day. Some of the equipment we outfitted our men with was inferior to the Germans and Japanese, who had either been preparing for war or engaged in conflict for the better part of the 1930s. But why in 2016 are the stories of sending today's soldiers into battle with anything but the best equipment? World events like the beginning of World War II, the reported attack on the USS Maddox in the Tonkin Gulf and the September 11th terrorist attacks shocked and angered Americans to action, though we are rarely dragged into war. Generally, as the nation enters conflict, there is a euphoric sense of excitement, heightened by a gleeful media. It should come as no surprise then, according to the Pew Research Center findings, public opinion regarding the popularity of military intervention strongly correlates to the effort's perceived success over time. It helps when there is a shock and hostile action which makes for good television. The cable news network was able to broadcast the first Gulf War in all of its green-hazed glory, showing videos of bombs hitting their target as General Storm in Norman Schwarzkopf gave press conferences, as officers speculated about successful bombing runs based on daily battle damage assessment reports. The media found a star. After a 6-week air campaign, ground troops pushed into Iraq, but were stopped when pictures showed dead bodies strewn on the highway back to Baghdad. The 100-hour ground war ended. In that case, most of the casualties were Iraqis, but the American military would again face the horrors of war in the desert. Exuberance fades when the realities of war become clear. During war, people die, face traumatic injuries and as a result, need continued care. As discussed, the public recoils when our young suffer these effects. But the number of casualties should not dictate success or failure of a mission. Military commanders judge those factors and move forward when warranted. We should trust in their training. Those who serve under them know their mission and accept risks and do so heroically. Warriors belong on the battlefield, politicians and those who rely on public opinion do not. For those on the sidelines, the only cause is to lend support to those who preserved freedom in our time. The public should demand issues like post-traumatic stress disorder, which afflicts more than ever, receive appropriate attention. War planning certainly does not begin when the first troops hit the ground inside enemy territory, and our responsibilities do not end when the mission is accomplished. There are groups that do help make the transition back to civilian life a bit easier. They include the VFW, American Legion and the Patriot Guard Riders. But according to the Western Illinois and Eastern Iowa Patriot Guard Ride captain I spoke with, Vietnam veterans were discouraged from joining because Vietnam was characterized as a conflict, and not a war. Thankfully, that issue has been resolved. Mr. Swanson assures me that the perception of the military has changed since the Vietnam era. The country seems to be more accepting of our veterans now, and that is helping some Vietnam vets heal. The PGR's mission is to provide assistance wherever possible to veterans who return to their communities. If they need supplies, we find a way to get it to them. Swanson mentioned what many who were in the military have the most difficult time readjusting to is the lack of structure. Many are frustrated by the rest of the world not being squared away. Patriot Guard members also stand in flag lines to show solidarity, respect and honor for those active duty military, first responders or veterans who have died. It is not necessary to be a veteran to be part of the Patriot Guard, the only requirement is the willingness to stand for those who have stood for us. There are plenty of opportunities to participate and thank a veteran. Swanson's group has an operation tempo of one mission every 2 days. The North Texas PGR, which covers a larger geographical area, has participated in 3,249 missions since 2008 according to their website. Veterans Day and Memorial Day are special, but there are many ways to show support for our country's veterans. The immensity of war is not illustrated by cold statistics, like war production or body count numbers. Statistics speak to the battles, but not the bonds of friendship forged by shared experience and the horrors of war. Many men and women did their job to keep battle buddies alive, not because of promise of medals or glory. I asked one formerly active Marine, and he said, "Everybody goes into basic training thinking they are going to do some Rambo stuff, and in the end, most just look forward to returning to a normal life and hugging loved ones." Veterans Affairs is now a political buzzword. Veterans have become political props, and that practice is despicable. I am advocating here for the United States Congress to use the power of the purse and prioritize our veterans so there is no mistaking that when individuals get sent into harm's way that the mission is clear, the battle plan is sound, supplies are available and that the people who defend us can count on us to have their backs when they return every day of the year. We know this may cost higher taxes, but at least taking care of those who need assistance after they have protected our ability to live a normal life seems like a worthy cause. We close by saying thank you to veterans and their families because without their service and sacrifices, no one would have the right to freely challenge the system. As Americans, we are free to explore and express our passions. We also hope and pray that our current veterans live out the rest of their days in peace, knowing that they were the last who had to fight to preserve what we all hold dear. We are the truth that's hiding in the dark. We are the last stand for humanity. We are your neighbors. We are humanity. We are a legion. And we are now. Expect us.
We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Sincerely yours. The Sanitation Man. Expect
Special
us.
Shotouts and in high. Inspect. Operation Second. And the Anonymous Collective.
And I have to start again. Just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars.